Hello, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another book rant. Today I'm going to be covering this book, Birds of Paradise. This book is by Oliver K. Langmead. I've never read any of his books as far as I know. I bought this new at a Barnes & Noble in El Paso back in, I want to say June or July. I think June of 2023. There's words of praise from several authors, and just to be honest with you, I know none of these authors or any of the books that it says they wrote. But there's a lot of praise from a lot of people, so it must be good. You know, that many people aren't going to praise trash, right? Well, let's find out. First off, this book is first edition, March 2021. So this is a relatively new book. When I bought it, probably only 2 years old. There's that to consider. It opens the page before the prologue, and weirdly, I don't know how common this is in publishing, but the title page says Birds of Paradise, Oliver K. Langmead, Titan Books, and is opposite a picture of what looks like a magpie with a large man in a coat passing by a painting of Adam and Eve. But then the next page is all the copyright information, followed by this. The king with beaks and talons, the king in the form of man. Nothing escapes those eyes. He sees everything. Cult of Luna, Ghost Trail. And then after that is the prologue. The order of title page, art, and copyright information is kind of confusing to me. I'd have mixed that around a bit, but the actual content is what matters, and that's what we're going to talk about. And so this tagline on the back cover it says, "What if you were made before death?" Adam, the first man, still walks the earth, exhausted by the endless destruction. He is a shadow of his former self. And he is not the only one. The first animals are scattered across the world, hiding in plain sight from mankind. Now, I think the best way to compare this is if you know the anime Wolf's Rain. In that setting, wolves are not necessarily shapeshifters, but they put on illusions of being men. And so when they walk in town, they appear human. And this is what allows the anime to have a lot of human expressions and emotion with their main characters that are very clearly wolves. But in that setting, wolves were the first creatures, and from them came all other life forms, and birds, horses, cats, servals, humans, all of these came from wolves, which is why in Wolf's Rain eventually a horse is seen talking with the wolves, a serval is seen actually in the same episode talking with wolves. But also wolves are capable of, when disguised, talking with humans. So something similar is at play here. Adam, the cultural Adam from Adam and Eve, is real, and he was created before death was created. And so he is immortal, and in a sense that implies he actually can't die. So he's lived a really long time, and he also survives a long time. The first animals are creatures similar to the wolves in Wolf's Rain. They are instead, though, actual shapeshifters. And what that means is that there are specific animals that you meet, thrush, raven, crow, you hear fox being talked about. A lot of these characters are human, but they're also the first animals, and they can change to suit their needs. Adam is spoken about. Uh, Adam is the main character, and what is happening is that some of the first animals have been killed during history, but more recently, some have been tracked down and killed, and Adam, who was the one that named all of these animals, he is the one who knows them. He is the father to them in a way. He feels pain every time one of them is killed. Not physically, he feels pain, but when he finds out that one of them is dead, he has memories of giving them that name, of all sorts of moments with them in the garden. And so this is a book about loss and living on for an extremely long time. He has outlived so many of his descendants. He has outlived so many of the animals that he named. And a lot of his descendants are the ones that killed those animals. And so it's regret and remorse and loss that he feels. But also the loss of Eve, because the story only talks about Eve in the past tense. She is something he's searching for the whole book. A lot of the actions, a lot of the moments, a lot of the events in the story are done because of what would Eve have done. Everything is past tense, despite there being implications from some of the other animals that they've seen her recently. But they're also all immortal, so maybe to them recently means 100 years ago, 150 years ago, 500 years ago. So you're never explicitly told what some of those mean until the end. And there's a wealthy man who is effectively a sugar daddy. They explain like he has a really young and lovely wife, and she is noticed by Adam because she's wearing one of those first animals. I think explicitly she's wearing fox. And he notices and weeps for her, the fox. And he is the first man. And weirdly enough, you only ever see like one of the first of each species. There's no like male and female thrush or male and female raven or anything that you meet. You only ever meet one gender of each species of animal, except in this case, human is unique in that there is a first female and there is a first male. Now, the reason I picked this book up off the shelf is that I don't know why, but lately I've been on kind of a bird tick. I've got a couple Roadrunner statues behind me. There's the bigger one behind me, and then there's a smaller wooden one carved. I'm really appreciative of any feathers I find, which is why, and it's hard to see in some of these videos, but over my shoulder, right there-ish, there's a feather that I found on a hike a couple years ago. And one of my favorite books of 2022 was Untethered Sky. And so when I found Birds of Paradise, I thought, oh, that has something to do with birds. And so the name is what spoke to me. The back matter explaining that he's working with the first thrush, the raven plays prominently, that intrigued me as well. And I found a really powerful book about processing loss and about protecting those whom you love. And I think that is one of the big takeaways for this book. It's only about 300 pages long, and honestly, they could have printed it on a smaller binding. because this is how big the font is. It's spaced really wide. I mean, compare that to other books like the one I talked about last week, The Crystal Shard. And, I mean, look at this. It's smaller spaced. There's a lot more words per page. But in Birds of Paradise, they're spread out. There's less words per page. It's a much bigger page. There's bigger margins. I think it could have been smaller. The author writes that some books take months to write and some take years. Birds of Paradise took just over a decade to write, and I have so much gratitude for all those who helped me along the way. And he explicitly thanks someone who passed away during the writing of this book, that it lasted so long that one of his major inspirations for writing it died. So, as he says, sometimes it takes a long time for a piece of creative work to come together. Birds of Paradise took long enough that some of those who were instrumental in its making did not live to see its completion. This book is in honor of them. One of the major plot points is that in addition to the first animals, there were also the first plants. The garden from the Garden of Eden, he was the one that named all of those plants. One of the major plot points is that the villain is trying to create a greenhouse, a garden for all of these first plants in a way trying to recreate artificially the Garden of Eden. And it's always incomplete so long as there is another plant out there that has survived and is by itself. So long as he doesn't have all of the first plants, the garden is incomplete. And so when he sees this, he sees Fox, he sees Rose, and in his rage, Adam kills the lady who is wearing Fox. And one of the birds flies away and finds a good place to bury Fox, while Adam takes Rose and finds a good place for Rose. And a lot of this plot picks up, it's Adam not really being the driver of the story. He's very reactionary, but his reactions move the plot forward. It's kind of weird. He's not actively moving things forward. He is going from place to place at the behest of someone else, and then something happens there, he reacts to it, and by the end he does drive the plot somewhat, but it's very late in the story. Birds of Paradise is a really, really fun book. It took me not too much time to read it. It was just a page turner, So I liked it, and I think if you like modern fantasy settings, this is a good book for you. If you don't mind religious overtones, this is a good book for you. It's not explicitly religious in any Christian way, but it does fall back on a lot of the trappings of Genesis to set the stage for its existence in the modern era. And so if you don't mind that and a twist on that kind of setting, this is a good book for you. Now, I bought it new for $16, and I'll be honest, that was a lot of money. I was spending a lot of money on that date. But I've bought more expensive books in the last couple years, and I'm going to buy more expensive books as I grow older. This book is a good book for the price I found it at, and if you can find it cheaper, whether online or if you like to look organically at thrift stores and used bookstores, whatever price you find it at, it's probably going to be worth it. So, Birds of Paradise, Oliver K. Langmead, really good book, and I think you should pick it up. My name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another book rant.